sports, so we knew that that was part of the game. And so, I think that just, even though he wasn't, my mother was a high school graduate, but, even though my father wasn't technically a learned man, he was, he's really a smart guy. He was a historian. He's a Bible scholar. He's just, he's one of those old school fathers. Every night he was home. I knew where he was. My mother and father been married 52 years.
Wow.
And so, we had, I grew up a little differently. I didn't have a lot of struggles. We didn't have a lot of money, but we had a lot of love, and we had a nuclear base to our family. So it was, all of my brothers and sisters. We all grew up together. Wasn't a lot of drama and trauma in our household. We were blessed to have that. And so education was emphasized. As I look back on it, my parents did what they, knew what they could do. And now I have more information for my kids when it comes to, higher education. We're starting to save now. I'm thankful for going to college, but, my parents didn't really know about, the loans that you had to incur in college. And, they didn't have, funds, college funds and trust funds started for us at 9 and 10 years old. What I'm trying to start for my children. So they decided to pursue higher education. And we live in a different society today.
Right.
My last statement about that is, we are emphasizing college and education, but we're also having folks come out of university, $500,000 in debt and can't get a job over $40,000. So the workforce, entrepreneurship, and other things, should be valuable options for our kids also coming out of high school.
Right. And one of the things that I really like that you said about your dad was that you pointed out that he's a very intelligent and smart man, but he wasn't formally educated. And for me, even though I work in education, I have big issues with formalized education. I think it puts too much pressure because everybody doesn't learn the same way. So it just speaks to the fact that you can't be educated without having a piece of paper in your hand. So I appreciate that.
I mean, I think it just speaks to the era he grew up in. He's 76 years old, and back then, his mother was a domestic who couldn't read and write, but worked for a lot of the Jewish families. So my dad went to work for a lot of those Jewish families at an early age because he had to provide for his family. He was the youngest of 6 kids, and he needed to help his mmother out. And so it wasn't like he couldn't do the work. I feel like if he would have had a different upbringing, he would probably have a doctorate degree. I think he's that smart of a guy. But just in that time, that wasn't the emphasis. It was go to work and start to provide, and he did that.
Okay.
Dr.
Lynette.
Oh, you got
okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Lynette, did you want to chime in?
No, I'm good.
Okay. Dr. Floyd?
I'm okay, thanks.
Okay.
Everybody shy. We ain't used to this Dr. Dunn show. Y'all shy?
I know everybody got a story to tell. Y'all ain't just fall into education. Y'all got here somehow.
Yeah. All right, go ahead.
Is that your question? You're asking how I came into education or how I feel about education?
Well, I was just more so trying to find out what was your background in terms of, like, in your household when you were coming up, before you became an educator. What was the pulse like in your house? Was it stress? Was it kind of like, you just go through the motions, things like that?
So I grew up, my mother was big on education, and we were the type of family who sat around and watched Jeopardy, and we wanted to see who could answer most questions, or we'd watch Wheel of Fortune and see who could solve the puzzle first. So it was ways to kind of infuse fun into the learning. And so from my mother, I guess I grew a love for metrics or math because we did a lot of cooking, and then she'd make me measure or find an equation for making something equal to something else. So she was more the applied learning for things. So yeah, that's where it was. But before I entered education, because like you were saying earlier, if you had asked me 25 years ago, where would you be? I don't think I would have said I would have landed in education. I actually went to school for television, and I worked in television for about 5 years before I entered the field of education. And so I started off as a substitute. And then I enjoyed working in Camden City Schools because I was a product of Camden City Schools. And so then I went to get my teaching certificate and then moved my way through the ranks. But what got me into education was the fact that the show I was working on in Philadelphia was canceled, and I was looking for a way to earn money and found a passion that I quite enjoyed.
So you wanted to be the next Sally Jesse Raphael? That's why you went into
No. All behind the scenes.
It's all good. It's all good. It's definitely all good. Go ahead, brother.
All right, Pashun, what's your what was the background for education in your home?
Well, for me, I'm one of 6, and I'm also first generation to go to college and graduate from college. My upbringing was one of a lot of adversity. So I was also at one point in time a part of the foster care system, and then finished out being raised by family members. But for me, kind of the same story somebody else mentioned, education was my ticket out. I knew that I was smart, and that was what I was going to use to change the narrative for my family. I had good family. My grandfather, they had all gone to high school and graduated from high school, but no one had actually finished college. I think maybe taken a couple community classes. My grandfather went to school, trade school, so he got a skills trade, and most of his brothers did as well. So I come from a family of tradesmen, actually. But I fell into education by way of a bad teacher that I had. She was a terrible example of motivating a student that, wasn't the cookie cutter, didn't come from that average background, home where education was important. It was just more so I had to be intrinsically motivated on my own because I was, it was just about just making it. And so that is what motivated me was a 5th grade teacher, actually, because I was such at a disadvantage, and because of my background, my home life, and what was going on. My goal was to make sure that no other kid felt the way that I felt during that time, and to recognize that, even though I had all these things against me and what I was going through, I still knew that I was smart, but I also needed a teacher to motivate me and recognize that I was smart and I was capable, and to encourage that piece. And I went into college knowing exactly what I wanted to do. So that was it for me. I knew I always wanted to be in education. I wanted to be a teacher. I love kids. I did not know that I would go into, I started out just teaching English, but I didn't know that I would go into special education. That was kind of by happenstance. And I'm actually from Detroit, born and raised, and started my education in Detroit Public Schools. I'm also a product of Detroit Public Schools. So a lot of the kids, I ended up teaching with some of my teachers that I had in middle school as well. And a lot of the kids that I dealt with and taught in Detroit were kids that share similar backgrounds as me, and there, I could still see the spark in them. I knew that they were capable because I know where they come from.
Okay.
And
well, go ahead, Doc.
Real quick, two things that stood out to me that I found interesting, because you said, I think you in high school there was a teacher that pointed out the potential in you, and it helped you see that. That didn't happen to me until I was in my 3rd year of college. I went to HBCU, so that happened my 3rd year of college.
Speak your college.
Why did I mention that? I went to the first historically black college university, Lincoln University, founded in 1854. But anyway, that didn't happen for me till my junior year. And to this day, I still keep in touch with her just to let her know what I'm doing in my life. But the other thing is, I've been in education for 16 years, and I've always wanted to work with kids who either one looked like me or had a similar story with me. And I always worked in urban settings, for that reason, because I wanted to give back that same thing that was given to me. And speaking of that, I wanted to ask you guys, what is the makeup of the current districts that you're serving? Like, is it a suburban or is it big city? Is it?
Well, let's do this, Doc. Before we I want to ask Dr. Floyd. And the reason why I want to ask Dr. Floyd, because Dr. Floyd is unique because she is, and Dr. Floyd, of course, you can attest to this, but she is the only African, I like to say black. I don't say African American. We black. But she's the only black teacher in her school. She deals with a predominantly 70% of Caucasian or white population. So she is, her story may be a little different than all of us because for the most part, we've always worked in the city. But Dr. Floyd, tell us what you do. Talk to us about it.
All right. You know what? And Monica Sharif.
Okay, Monica. Okay.
Yes, I am the only minority teacher in my school, and I have been in most of the schools that I've worked in throughout the Archdiocese. But we have incorporated some clubs like the STEP team, which is really great, and some other clubs that are for minority teachers, minority students, which is really great. International club, things like that. But I am a Spanish teacher at a school predominantly white, and what else did you ask me, Sharif? I'm sorry.
Well, no, my question, not necessarily just to talk about your experience as far as being the only black teacher there, but now, and I'll follow that up with, how do the students and the staff relate to you, or I guess I don't want to say deal with you, but how do they relate to you and just interact with you on a daily basis?
Okay, on a daily basis.
Yeah.
Well,
you there every day.
Well, you know, I have more of because I run more of the, like the international club and things like that. And because I'm the only minorities teacher, the black students do, you know, draw to me a little bit more than the other teachers, although there are other teachers who are very supportive. But on a daily basis, that's funny. They, I feel like I'm valued at this school. I do. I feel like they do respect me and value my position at the school, and the fact that I am a role model, I guess. Okay. Per se.
Have you ever, and I hope I didn't cut you off, but have you ever been put in a situation, or has there ever been an onus been put on you, whereas like, you know, where like by you being the only, you know, black teacher there, you know, your white counterparts may come to you and like kind of put the mic in your face and say, well, Monica, what do you think? Like, does that happen?
Exactly. That's exactly what happened to me.
Okay.
I had the principal at the time said to me, you know, we have a problem with one of the students who wanted to wear dreadlocks. And she came to me one morning, threw me off guard and said, do you think I offended them because I said he cannot wear dreadlocks to the school because they're too long and because they're dreadlocks? And that's just not what we do here. And I'm in a suburban Catholic school, so it's a little bit different, maybe. I don't know. I don't know how the Catholic schools in the city work, but I know that where I teach, that was very offensive to me. There was also another situation where we had a talent show, and they had a kid, his name was Jamal, and he was very brown skinned. And Jamal, they used him, and they put up different pictures of Jamal with the hockey team or the baseball team, and they said, where's Jamal? It was a game. It was like a trivia thing. Where's Jamal?
Really?
And he was the only African-American or black student that was in each of these different scenarios. And I was very offended. And when I went to the principal, the principal and the president, excuse me, I went to both the principal and the president, they told me I was being a little bit too sensitive.
This is not Where's Waldo. This is a real person.
Right, exactly. Thank you, Brown. So, and Monica, that's what I was thinking when you first said it, you know, I was thinking, where's Waldo? So, okay, you went to the principal.
Yeah, it was like a where's Waldo? But it was where's Jamal?
Where's Jamal?
Only
Which is,
black kid
yeah.
into these pictures, the soccer team, the baseball team, you know, that kind of thing. And I was very offended. And the other teachers were very sensitive to me. They came to me, and a few of them came to me and said, what was that? And
but
I didn't know what it was.
Yeah, did they? I'm assuming you already know the answer, but I don't want to assume. But I guess they didn't voice their opinion to the administration or to the
absolutely not.
higher up or whatever. So,
no, I was considered too sensitive because I did voice my frustration. I was very frustrated. And I went to Jamal before I did that. And I went because I knew Jamal. And I said, are you okay with that? He said, I didn't even know they were going to do it.
How old was Jamal, and how long ago this?
Jamal was a senior, and his brother had just passed away. He happened to be one of my students. So I was very, very offended. And very.
How long ago did this occur?
Oh, 6-7 years ago.
6-7 years ago, but it still resonates with you today. So now, Miss Barnes, I know you in the dirty South, in Louisville, Kentucky. And I know it's probably a bunch of Karen. And let me say this. I like to joke on a podcast, but also we take it serious. Hence the word, the doctor, the dunce. Just because he's a doctor, that doesn't mean I'm the dunce. I got to put that out there all the time. People always think I'm the
Wait, real quick, can I ask you a question? Where did that term Karen come from?
Instagram,
I'm lost
social
on
media.
that.
Social media. I mean, I just, you know, it's for women. It's for white women that use their
kind of like Becky.
They use
okay. I was like, what happened to Becky? Did she die?
Well, Becky's something different.
Becky was something different. She did
ask
something
Beyonce
else.
about that, but we ain't gonna get into that right now. But in all seriousness, we all know that there's certain disparities, and I don't want to, you know, kind of paint the picture. I'll let you guys talk for yourself. But in Louisville, Kentucky, Miss Barnes, and I know your background a little bit. Talk about your background, talk about your experiences, and talk about how there is a disconnect or a divide between black students, or not necessarily just black students, but blacks, young people in education, and of course, you know, white folks in education.
Okay, so my story is very different because, like I said, I'm from Detroit, and I started my teaching career in Detroit. I was actually recruited to come teach for this district in Kentucky, in Louisville, for the reason that they were recruiting minority teachers because the percentage of minority teachers, the percentage is about 70, and just staff and teachers and administrators are 75% white, and the rest is like black or other. So I think we maybe make up maybe 15 to 20% black for the district. But and mind you, I'm coming from a 99% black district. To this, but the irony of that, so I told you the percentage of the administrators and teachers are white, a high number, and a small percentage are black. Well, while the students in this district make up about 60 to 65%, they're all people of color, black or other, and the rest are 40%, 35 to 40% white. So when you think about that, you have this high number of minorities in the district with very little minority administrators and teachers in the district. You can already tell that there are going to be issues. So when I first moved here, I was at a very affluent high school. It was majority white. Well, it was almost about 50-50, I think, with the makeup demographics of students. But of course, the staff, it was only 5 of us. Was it 4? 4 black teachers in the building, 4 black people in the building. One of them was custodian. There you have it. And there were a lot of many disconnects. For one, at this school, they didn't have a high number of turnover or new teachers coming in. So me coming in, being young, African-American, I was often mistaken as a parent, as a student, anybody besides a person that actually taught at this school.
So
because it was a...
No, go ahead. Go ahead. Make your point.
So there weren't a lot of outlets for the Black students. So it's funny, I'm a Delta. So I was the one that started the step team.
Boy.
Gosh, you are going to get him started.
Here we go.
I was going to get to that.
All right, we're going to get to that, but I want to make this point, and I don't want to cut you off because I want to kind of get to the crux of the matter. As far as your experience, similar to Dr. Floyd, I'm going to get to the administrators. This is why we're doing it like this. Do you think that those students, by just being in Monica's case, she was the only one, but you guys at least had 4, but one was a custodian, so really 3.
3, yeah.
Do those students tend to, I guess, gravitate towards you guys more, where there's certain situations where you guys were, no, okay,
no,
talk about that, okay.
It was, and you would seem that they would.
Wow, okay.
And that's what I expected. A small number of them did, but I was shocked that not many of them did. What I found was a lot of them had been so, beat down with conditioned with this district that they did not want to even identify or associate with being Black. They didn't want to be seen with me. They didn't want the Black kids didn't want to talk to me because right now, this is how it is in this district, is that being Black was not a thing to be proud of. Being Black meant that you weren't smart, that you were bad, that you were always in trouble, that you were poor, all those different things. So even like our AP classes, Black students only made up maybe 1% of Black students in AP classes. There was such a high disproportionate rate of suspensions for Black and minority students. What else? So I mean, when I moved here, my credentials, my identity, who I was always in question. It was as if I needed to carry around a card and say, hey, I have 2 master's degrees. I have my certification. I have my degree in this. I can, I had to constantly run my credentials about who I was and what I was capable of. Not just to, I'm not talking about just to teachers or colleagues. I'm talking about to Black students because they weren't feeling it. So after a while,
and parents too. Yeah. So
parents as well.
Hold that thought. This is the Dr. Duns podcast.
Please hold for a very. Don't try this at home.
Once again, let me do that again.
Subscribe now.
This is the Dr. Duns.
Try this at home.
Technical difficulty. We gotta do our own drops. We ain't got no money. This is the Dr. Duns podcast.
Don't try this at home.
Oh my God.
Tell us where they can find us, good brother. Tell us where they can find us.
You can find us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, CastBox, or your favorite podcast. Please follow us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and YouTube. And please shoot us a message in a direct message or Messenger and let us know what you think, what you want to hear from us. Give us some feedback. We appreciate it.
Subscribe now.
Okay, so let's get back to it. And I apologize, a little technical difficulty. I do one of those every show. It's just my nature. It's just part of the show. Mr. Bell, Ms. Brown, from an administrator point of view, what are some of the things that you guys have had to experience from your standpoint? And what I mean by that is, and also too, you guys are more than free to chime in when we ask certain questions. We're just going through, and Bell, I know you're a strong Black man. You didn't shout out your school like my man went to. You got to shout out your school.
I was gonna let him live, man.
Oh, okay.
I was gonna let him live, but Morgan State. I got the colors on. You know, we the real blue and orange at Morgan State.
Oh. My daughter wanted to go to Morgan State a few years ago.
Yeah, changed my life. Changed my life.
So, but listen, in all seriousness, you're a superintendent of a school district. You are a strong Black male. You have a certain presence that you command attention. as a person or as an administrator that's in a position of higher power, you're at the top. What has been some of your experiences as far as not just racial disparities amongst the students, but also the parents that you come in contact with, even maybe some of your other administrators or people that work under you in your district?
So, so let me.
Oh, did we lose him?
Yeah, but I think he's just. You there, Bell? All right. Well, Ms. Brown, I'm going to come back to you. Ms. Brown?
I'm here.
Okay. I'll propose the same question to you. As an administrator, what has been some of your experience, you know, like I say, as far as being not only a Black person, but a Black woman in positions of power? What has been your experience as far as dealing with some type of racial disparity, whether it be the community and parents and things of that nature?
So I presently work in a district where 65% of the student population is African American. And so, and then in terms of administration, we have 6 administrators in my building. And so 4 of them are, including myself, are African American, 2 are white. I am the only female administrator. So many times I find that as an advantage because, you know, I can see it from a different perspective or present it a little differently. In my current district, I haven't seen as many disparities because, this is my 3rd year in. In my previous district, we had a much more diverse population. And, you know, when parents didn't find things that went their way, the first thing they went to was, oh, it's a race card. Oh, she doesn't like my kid because, and then it became a race issue. But thankfully, I had a principal and superintendent who understood, you know, it's about the code of conduct and it's not about the skin color of the student. It's, you know, you committed an egregious act against the code of conduct and this is what it's going to be. So outside of discipline, I had no problems.
Okay, all right then. Okay, all right. Well, I mean, you know, one of the things that I'll say, I know you, Brown, and I know your makeup, and I know, of course, like I said, what you bring to the table. So I know you're definitely holding it down. Bell, I want to come back to you as far as the question I proposed, as far as, like I said, being a person that's in high power. What has been your experience?
So real quick, so I taught a couple of years in Baltimore City, and then I came to Camden, and I think like once you know, as a teacher, you know, you just, you know, I was just like you talking about, you would hold it down. That's how I held it down. You know, we you know, we're in a district, all mostly Black kids in Camden and in Baltimore City, 99.9% kids of color. So kids start to gravitate towards you. When you get into the administration ranks, things become different. You start to see things differently. You start to see policies. In Camden, you would see, you know, Camden was about abject poverty and violence, and so how it affects our people. So you try to be a different type of administrator. In the world I'm in now, man, I see something totally different because I'm leading a school district that, you know, is 60-70% African American, 95%, you know, taught by white folks. I'm the first Black superintendent in the district, you know, and that comes with a lot, you know, of you almost got to be perfect half the time, you know, most of the time. And what really stood out to me was, you know, just in the last, you know, 6 weeks, I was meeting with my team of principals, vice principal, my district admin team. It might be like 14 of us, and I think it's maybe 4 or 5 of us who are African American. And you know, the George Floyd thing was happening, and you know, I started to talk to him about, you know, how I was feeling. You know, it was really, you know, eerily quiet. And then we had the protests, and I think it was like a lot of protests across the nation over the weekend. And so, you know, I had decided that, you know, I was going to speak out and send a letter on behalf of the district. And I had a couple of administrators who literally thought that I was crazy and that wasn't a good idea. Of course, they were white. And the thing that stood out to me, one of my white administrators said to me, I don't think that we should be advocating for this type of thing. You know me, man. I went to town on that. This work is advocacy.
What was their reasoning? What was their reasoning?
It's a difficult conversation. I think when people hear you talk about these racial things, these injustices that happen, they automatically want to put you in a box and say, well, he's a Black Lives Matter person, or he's into Antifa, or he's a liberal, he's a leftist, and that's not always necessarily the case. Or it
could just be you, the angry black man, like from Martin. You know what I'm saying?
I could be, and at times I am, because I want you to really know, like I told the people in my district, it's not something I'm willing to be quiet about. We have too many students in our district of color, and we have families in our district that are hurting, and feel like they've never been heard, and so. Long story short, I sent the letter out. I went over it, made sure I wasn't really coming off too emotional, but actually just talking factual. I sent the letter out, and man, we got so many people were positively impacted by that letter. And of course, the next day I was on the superintendent's call for my county, and I'm the only Black superintendent in my county out of 31 counties. And I shared that letter with them, and to a person, each one of them, now I sent the letter out in a group email. Of course, they all responded to me individually, but everybody was like, saying, I think I need to say something. I have to say something,
Right.
And to me, silence is being complicit, man. Like you can't be sitting in these positions of leadership and be hemming and hawing about whether you're gonna say something or not. And let me say something, man. There's some white leaders have more courage than some of these Black leaders who are saying, I don't want to upset the status quo. Right. I don't want people to know where I really stand. I had one brother tell me, well, the people know what I stand for. And I said, no, they don't, because you're not saying nothing. People don't know exactly where you stand. You got to make it very clear to them.
Bell, no, go ahead, Bell. Go ahead. I apologize.
So I'm just saying, so in my current district is completely, it's a lot different from where I used to work, but I'm trying to change that narrative. And so I'm not afraid of a challenge when it comes to race and having those courageous conversations. We try to do it respectfully, and we try to. I always tell people, stay at the table. Don't walk away from the table when we're having this conversation.
Right. I just want to follow up with that, Rod. Let me just follow up real quick, and I'm gonna propose it to Dr. Floyd, Ms. Brown, and Ms. Barnes, both of the Deltas. How did you? Although we were in quarantine, how did you guys? Of course, we all felt some type of way about George Floyd and the murder, but how did you guys feel as though maybe relating certain things, to your students? Relating certain things possibly to your colleagues, especially you, Ms. Brown, because you're an administrator. I don't know if similar to Ms. Bell, you had those conversations. And then even going forward, when you go back in September, if we go back in September, how do you think it's going to be, taken, or how do you think the vibe is going to be like in your classroom? I don't care. Any of you guys can go first. I propose the question to all three of you.
I'll go.
Okay.
I believe. You know what? Well, I believe when the George Floyd thing happened, I want to say we were already out of school.
Right. Of course.
We were already out of school. So it was very, it was very eerie because of the makeup of my district, I just had to sit back and wonder were they going to say anything, or what was going to be brought up. But that we had, of course, we have oh gosh, why did her name just slip my mind?
Breonna Taylor.
Yes,
Taylor. I knew you were going to go there.
Breonna Taylor.
Right.
So we had a lot of those protests going on. So, I've been down there and been a part of those protests, and actually our teachers at different schools, even at my school, started, basically encouraged teachers to be a part of it, to stand.
That's what I was going to ask. Did your teachers come out? Did your students come out?
I didn't make it to that one, but my students were definitely out there. They were on the news.
Okay.
But
white and black? Was it white and black students, or just
No, a lot of white and black. That's the interesting part about my district, is that the white students are more on the right side of things and more accepting. I feel like even more than the black students. So it was a lot of my white students.
Why do you think that's the case?
I think because of, I'm gonna say, what do I want to say? It's like have versus the have-nots. So they're probably a little bit more well-versed, more well-educated. I think it's it's a poverty thing. It's a mentality thing. So a lot of my Black students, they don't feel empowered. They don't have pride. So something like Black Lives Matter, many of them did show up, but many of them don't have pride in themselves. So if their white counterparts don't see it as good, then it's more likely that they'll fall back. But if they have white counterparts that are saying, yes, this is good, then my Black students, they'll get involved.
All right, let me let Dr. Floyd, what's your take on it? And like I said, I'm not talking about just about George Floyd, but what do you think the vibe is going to be when you guys go back to school in September if you're in class? Like I say, I know everybody was quarantining and doing remote teaching, but what's your thoughts on it as far as just, we kind of off topic, but I felt as though when Bell brought up George Floyd, I felt as though there was a need for, at least to give you guys an opportunity to speak upon it, because that's something that's part of history. So what are your thoughts as far as how your students may react, or how you can engage, or how they may feel?
She said, "Don't call her Dr. Floyd," just so you know.
Oh, my fault, Monica.
It's Monica.
See, I know Monica. See, y'all don't know Monica. I know Monica as Cuddy. You know what I'm saying? So
exactly.
You know what I mean? But I'm not gonna call her Cuddy on TV because I'm trying to be professional. I'm trying to be professional, y'all. You know what I mean? Go ahead.
Okay. Well, again, I work in a different area, Drexel Hill, and our students are not caring too much about Black Lives Matter.
Okay.
In fact, we had a student body president who called me in this summer, who there were some things on the internet that were very racially devised, and she wanted me to represent, I guess, just to be there for her as the minority teacher.
Right.
And,
was she a Black student?
Was
she Black, the student?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yes. And there were some kids who the parents actually, a couple of the parents actually worked as administrators or teachers, and they used the N-word. And that was huge. So I don't even know where I'm going with this. I'm sorry.
Like,
it's my bedtime.
This is not CNN. This is not Fox News. I'm not Tucker Carlson.
Honestly,
you can just speak from your heart.
It was big, because I had one parent who said, they were just kids on the internet playing around, and another parent who was just so upset that her kid was on social media saying the N-word,
right,
and using this like, it was nothing. And I don't even know if I answered your question. Again,
no, you
past my bedtime. I go to bed at 8
it's okay. You answered the question. You answered the question based upon how you feel. But my like I said, I just wanted to know what the thought was. Miss Brown, can I call you Miss Brown, or do I gotta call you Lynette? You know what I'm saying? I'm trying to be.
I answer to it all.
But in all seriousness, though, similar to what Mr. Bell said, similar to what Monica said. How have you had to deal, I guess, either with your counterparts, or how do you guys plan to deal with your students when you go back? I mean, in my opinion, the energy is dying down somewhat based upon George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, Ahmaud Arbery is dying down a little bit. And like I said, Rob, I'm gonna get back on topic. I'm gonna let you get us back on topic. But I think that right now, what's going on is going to continue to go on. Also, if we don't continue it on, then it will die down. That's what I was trying to say. But Ms. Brown, how do you feel?
So for me, I'm Black 365. So I feel like James Brown, say it loud, I'm Black and I'm proud. My students know, my staff know, like, this is who I am.
Right.
I proudly don African attire or garb, throughout the year.
Right.
So it's not just one day, but it's received well.
Right.
And we have an African-American club. We also have an African-American history curriculum. Okay. So And right now it's being taught by a Caucasian teacher, but he seems to be culturally sensitive. But to your question about George Floyd,
culturally
we were
insensitive?
No, sensitive. He's a good guy.
Okay.
Yes, so he's knowledgeable about his history, and I feel comfortable with him. Yes, I feel comfortable with him presenting the information, and I'm sure the students will get a well-rounded picture of what they need to know. So I'm confident in his abilities to convey the information.
Okay.
In terms of George Floyd, we were also out of school, and I did not have an opportunity to speak to students about it, but I was in and out of the building when staff were also in and out of the building. And I had a couple, older Black teachers come to me and go, I just sat in front of the television and cried. They're like, Brown, did you see it? Yes, girl, I saw it. And so, it really resonated with them because they also lived through, civil rights, and to see things, repeat themselves, it was really heartfelt.
Okay, all right. Go ahead, Doc. Get us back on the road.
Well, real quick, Ms. Brown, I work in a high school. It's I guess you could say an urban high school, predominantly minority, and we have African American history courses that are also taught by Caucasian teachers, and the students, at least from the ones that I've talked to, they actually have an issue with that. Why do they have us learning about African American history they'll say from a white teacher? Mm-hmm. And I really don't have an answer for that. I understand how they feel. When I took African American history in undergrad, it was taught by an African teacher from Africa. I think he's from Nigeria. But and that actually leads me to my next question. I wanted to ask you guys, do you think that Black students are being done a disservice in the education system in America? And if so, what is the disservice, and how do you believe that is taking place?
So for me, I'm going to say it's not necessarily a disservice, but if we want to rectify it, we need some more highly qualified teachers who are going to pick up the torch and spread the word or come educate these students. Because I said 2/3 of my student population is African American, but it's more like 2/3 of my teaching staff is Caucasian. And so I don't have any African American individual teachers to teach the subject area. They don't teach history. So it would be nice if we had, more people of color enter the field of education in order to, relay what needs to be told.
How do you make education a field that more people like us want to get into? Because for me, I kind of just fell into education. I always thought when I was in undergrad, I was like, oh, that's an easy major. It's just for people who want to cop out and get out of school easily. And me being on the front lines, I know that's not the case.
Not so.
But educators have so much working against them in terms of, people always say you got summers off, but people don't really, well, at least not till now, people have not really valued educators. And, we talked about earlier, parents have said, oh, I see what y'all go through. How do you make this field more appealing so you can get people like us to want to buy into the system and want to come help our kids?
Well, Bell, why don't you answer that as a higher up superintendent? Why don't you take that one?
Listen, I could talk all night, so I'm trying to be cordial, especially with with our other panelists. But the first thing, Doc, you have to do is, we got to start targeting these kids, African American students, early, like 9th grade, 10th grade, about career pathways. Everybody, you have CTE courses. We're in the process of designing the CTE course that's about education for people who want to become educators. I have a lot of young guys, males younger than me, who they go to college and either they play sports or they go in and they take these business management majors and they want to coach, and they come out and here they are. They may have a degree or close to getting done, and they realize, man, I want to get an education. The system is not set for alternative educators. I mean, it's systematic, right? You have to celebrate this. There's a couple of people out here that's doing some really, really good work around, getting Black male educators. Sharif El-Mekki, who started an organization in Philadelphia highlighting, Black males in education. You know, we need Black women in education that are teaching STEM and STEAM courses. You know, Ms. Brown was my tech coordinator, one of my favorite people ever when I was a principal. I actually asked Ms. Brown to even teach a class one time, all girls, to get them into. You remember that, Ms. Brown? I taught one class as a principal, and you taught the other class. So I think it's, you know, there's some programs around. The Rowan University has a program, the Impact program. We just need greater reach. I think that when you have, you know, we got to get guys like Reef back in classrooms, stop running from his calling, you know, things like that.
I'm glad you said it. I'm so happy you said that.
I've been on his heels. You know, I got a job offer waiting for him in Woodbury. But seriously, you know, like we need, you know, we not only do we just need role models, but we need to emphasize and brand what education is. You know, educators are making good money in this economy. You know, a starting teaching salary in the Northeast region is somewhere in the mid 50s, which is it's a decent, you know,
that just
salary.
happened.
Wait, say that again.
That comes with, you know, cost of living, but there's superintendents who are making, you know, I'm not one of them, but there are a few, you know, you get into administration principals. You know, a lot of times our kids don't see the role as glamorous. You know, I'm not gonna make enough money, or you know, it's not. You know, some of our kids have so much trauma in school that they don't want to be the thing that they thought gave them so much angst at growing up, or families are not pushing the sons and daughters into education because of the trauma they experienced in school. There's a lot of mitigating factors. Of why, and then a lot of us are becoming dissatisfied. You know, we have organizations like Teach for America where folks jump in for a couple of years and they jump right out because of the burnout factor, because of the lack of support. I mean, you know, we can break this thing down for hours, but I think there is a path forward. You know, we just have to continue to try to work at that. Even in my own district, I'm heavy on recruiting. You know, I think we recruited this year 8 teachers, eight members to our organization of color. And I think that's good for a district that's more than half of our openings that we had in our district. We were able to fill with bilingual candidates, Hispanic women, Black women in leadership, supervisor and director roles, teachers in the classrooms, you know, Black males in the classroom. So I think we try to do the best we can.
Rob, repeat the question. I'm gonna let Dr. Floyd go. I mean, Monica, you fell asleep.
No, that was great.
Okay, let Monica go, Doc. Let Monica go.
What was your question? I'm sorry.
Go ahead, repeat the question, Doc. I told you.
I'm tired. I told you.
We're gonna let you live. Cause I'm gonna say the Delta for last, because you know the Deltas, they like to take over stuff.
Oh, excuse me.
No, I said the Deltas. We're gonna say the Deltas.
No, I said excuse me.
What? I know.
We're gonna let you.
Hold on.
I know. Lynette, I love you. But
I know.
Go ahead.
He keeps saying Delta, but he's never pointing out the fact that we have an AKA on the line.
No, that's what I'm saying. We're gonna let the AKA go first. We're gonna let the Delta go last. Go ahead, Rob. Repeat the question, brother.
You know you started something with.
I know.
Yeah, I know.
Right?
First and last.
No, not at all.
My brother,
My friends are deltas.
The question was,
My niece is a delta.
I asked, do you believe that Black students are being? I mean, let me fix that. Are we doing a disservice to Black students in this country? We as the education system in America, and if so, what is the disservice that's being done? That was what the question was.
That's for me, Sheree?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And then I'm going to sleep. I'm sorry.
Okay, no problem.
But
we almost done.
Okay. I will say this. As a representative in this group for the Archdiocese of Philadelphia, we are definitely doing a disservice for to the African American, or excuse me, Black students. And I say that as, again, a curriculum chairperson and a parent who had 4 kids actually, who have gone through the Archdiocese of Philadelphia. 3 in high school, graduated, and one still to graduate. Yeah, I feel like they are doing a disservice. Unfortunately, what are my question, I guess, is what do I do? I mean, what other option do I have other than sending my kid? I live in the suburbs, and two of my kids chose to go to the school that I teach at, which is in the Archdiocese.
Right.
And that's because they felt, and I felt, that our district wasn't good enough for them.
You mean the public school district?
The public school district.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
The other two decided to go their own way, and they decided on their own, the older two. Right. But the younger two, I kind of decided that the public schools in my area are not really conducive of what I wanted them to do. So
that's the dilemma you have as, sorry to cut you off. Go ahead, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
I was just gonna say that's the dilemma you have as a parent, because you have to decide, some parents have to decide where they're gonna live based on, the education.
Absolutely.
The district is something that I'm going through now. My son is 4 years old. It's like, I live in Philadelphia. I don't want him going to school in Philadelphia. Right. So where am I going to move? And I got to weigh house versus school district. Is so many parameters